Hey all you GBA type people, welcome to Pivotal Moments. I am KantoCastBlue.
And I'm Oldmantup.
And this is the show where we look at the crucial turning points in the matches for Season 2 of the GBA D-League.
Okay, and what we do is we just break it down, look through the matches, and find out where we think the momentum shifted, what was the most important moment of the match that sealed the deal. And this week, Week 2, we're going to start out with the San Franciscoarcaniners and the Buffalo Bills. And this was billed to be the match of the century. The two probably top prospect battlers playing against each other. And we'll take a quick look over the teams. The Arcaniners brought with them Mega Scizor, Goodra, Arcanine, Melodic, Landorus Eye, and Zapdos, while the Bills had Hippowdon, Umbreon, Crobat, Manectric, Azelf, and Slowbro. I take a look at this match, and I see two very important moments, and that is the breakdown of the walls on the Buffalo Bills side. The first moment was, well, pretty much when Hippowdon went down to a one-shot from the Lando Grass Knot that stopped Will from getting his rocks up, which would have really helped him late game. And moment 2 was when George craftily played his Goodra with Will's Umbreon with the Draco Meteor and the hidden super power, which he pulled out in the second encounter, which took out the Umbreon, and unfortunately it was just a slow slide downhill. Will still had a few moments where he shined and could have changed the tides, but I think from that point on there was just not much he could do to stop the onslaught that George brought his way.
Yeah, one wall going down, that's one thing. Second wall going down, two of the Pokemon that it was meant to counter, mind you, that is a problem. And well crafted with the superpower Goodra, don't get me wrong. It broke my heart a little bit because I love Umbreon and it made me sad to see it go down. But that was very clever. That was very well played.
Yeah, this battle was two of the probably the best preparers in the league. And George just shined through this week and came through for him, being able to take down the wall core really early in the match.
Absolutely. He was making the plays early on, and it definitely paid off in spades for the remainder of the match. Second game, game number 2, we have the Washington Blaziken going up against the Accrington Stantlers. Now, the Blaziken brought Skarmory, Gastrodon, Manectric, Entei, Hydreigon, and Mega Venusaur, a personal favorite of mine. The Stantlers had Regirock, Infernape, Latias, Scizor, Florges, and Mega Sableye, the tricky Mega Sableye. There were two kind of issues that happened right in the beginning and then right at the end. Early on, the Blaziken had Skarmory, the physical wall for the team, go down to a Thunderbolt from Latias. And then there was another moment at the very end where the Blaziken could have pulled it out. They could have taken home the win if they had gone for the recover when Infernape was switched out for Scizor. I believe the Stantlers were trying to preserve for differential, who knows, but had the recover taken place at that moment instead of going for the Scald onto the Scizor, could have been a very different match that we're talking about right now. But it is what it is, and that is when Gastrodon went down, which was a Pokemon that Ellie, or 8-Bit Insomniac, didn't have a whole lot of answers for otherwise.
Yeah, I agree with both those moments. The Skarmory going down so early in the match, and Mighty Mamoswine mentioned in his commentary, I know Thunderbolt on Latias is coming, but I need to stay in and get this defog off. And Skarmory went down, and once Skarmory went down, there wasn't much left on his team to deal with the likes of Regirock, Scizor, Florges. I mean, half of Ellie's team really struggled against a defensive Skarmory. And it going down that early really set him back. I mean, he didn't have anything that could come in that wasn't neutral to a Latias Draco Meteor if it was dropped at that point. So Ellie at that point was literally free to drop Dracos. I mean, I don't remember if she had that specifically, but nothing Nick could switch in really wants to come in and take a free Life Orb Draco Meteor. and that was just heartbreaking when that happened. And the gastro move, I don't know if Nick was just... It's not easy to think, well, why didn't Nick click recover? It was the safest move, and if something hinky happened, it was his only option. Well, when you're at that point and you're looking at something that outspeeds you and guarantees to take you out with the next move, you don't really think, well, maybe I should click recover in this situation. And I mean, that's, in my opinion, the Skarmory was the more crucial moment, because the fact that he would have guessed that Ellie would have switched out Infernape to save it from going down to a Life Orb recoil, that was just, in my opinion, not as pivotal of a moment, because it was, even if it had happened, it's not 100% guaranteed that Nick would have won. It's just 75% more likely that he would have, depending on how many recovers he had left, because he had burned a lot of them at that point. And if I'm not mistaken, recover only gets 16 total, and there was a long stally part of the match where I'm going to say over half of those were burned. So we'll move on from there to the third match we're going to cover, and that's the New York Shamans versus the Miami Dolphinions. I have two written down. The first one I'm going to say is probably the most pivotal moment, because if one particular thing at that moment would have been different, this match would not have been a 5-0 in Mr. Supagassi's favor. And that is the turn when Weavile was in and Supagassi switched in his Ampharos to avoid the extra knockoff damage and to fish for a static paralysis. And as it so happened, Weavile, if I'm not mistaken, went for the knockoff, which 99.9% of the time is the safest and correct play. So it's not like Hardy made a bad choice going for it, but unfortunately Supagassi switched in the Ampharos, which took the knockoff marvelously, might I add, and also got the static paralysis, which if I'm not mistaken is a 30% chance, onto the Weavile. Now, two things happened in this turn which really could have been different, could have drastically altered the match at this point. One, if the paralysis didn't happen, Weavile still outspeeds the entirety of Supagassi's team. And two, Hardy had Swords Dance on Weavile. Had he gone for the Swords Dance, I don't believe Supagassi had anything that would have touched Weavile at that point. Could he have worn it down with what may have been the only form of priority with Doublade in Shadow Sneak? I don't know. It's really hard to say what would have happened differently, but Weavile outright sweeps at that point, barring somehow miraculously going down to Life Orb recoil. And another smaller, less important pivotal moment that I saw was the crit knockoff from Weavile onto Reuniclus after Reuniclus had racked up a couple kills. Really saved Hardy, in my opinion, from having the rest of his team swept through by the Reuniclus at that point, because it took Reuniclus down to the point where it had to switch out and couldn't stay in to take another knockoff.
Well, I would have to say that not going for the Swords Dance on Weavile was the biggest loss of momentum that Hardy could have had in his favor. The Dolphinians had Mega Medicham, Archeops, Porygon 2, Raichu, Sylveon, and Weavile, whereas the Shelmets brought Mega Ampharos, Blissey, Manaphy, Doublade, Garchomp, and Reuniclus. Looking at these teams, right, Weavile takes care of pretty much everything. Pretty much everything. And with a Swords Dance, it probably could have. Not to mention outspeeding relatively everything on the Shelmets team. So, had he made perhaps the gutsier play and gone for the Swords Dance, I feel like we might be talking about a different 5-0 right now. But
yeah,
because he made the safe play, which, don't get me wrong, is not always the wrong option, but bigger the risk, bigger the reward. And had the Dolphinians gone for a Weavile Swords Dance at that point in the match, I think it would have been a tough comeback for the Shelmets to make.
Yeah, agreed. It was just that one moment in the match. If the paralysis hadn't have happened, or he had gone for the Swords Dance, I think the outcome of this match, I'm not going to say that I'm going to guarantee that Hardy would have won, but we definitely wouldn't be looking at a 5-0.
Which brings us to our fourth game of Week 2. That was the Houston Gastros going up against the Seattle Staraptors. Now, the Gastros brought Sawk, Nidoqueen, Mega Aerodactyl, Suicune, Mew, and Raikou, and the Staraptors had Tentacruel, Crocodile, Salamence, Registeel, Jolteon, and Victini. So, what to say about this match? It was long and hard fought. Some of the moves were a little confusing, but ultimately it came down to a close 1-0 yet again this week. What I had written down for some of the pivotal moments, I'm going to cop out and call it moments because I couldn't really pinpoint just one thing happening. There were some crucial misses of Will-O-Wisps onto Salamence from Mew. Now, I know, we don't want to blame hacks, we never do, but residual damage on that Salamence could have made a huge difference when Sawk actually did connect with the Stone Edge. So, 3 misses is rough. Mind you, every single one of the Stone Edges that Sawk used did land, I believe. Maybe
yes.
One missed, but, you know, still. That's awfully impressive. 20% chance to miss, whereas a 15% chance to miss with Will-O-Wisp, and then Will-O-Wisp misses 3 times, twice of which was on Salamence. That's unfortunate, especially given the set that Salamence had, which was primarily a recovery set with Wish. I feel like residual damage would have been pretty darn handy on that Salamence. Then there were some other moments, mainly when Aerodactyl got switched into Tentacruel on the Giga Drain while taking rock damage. And I believe it was around turn 22, if I'm not mistaken. That was a big one, because I believe Aerodactyl took over half damage at that point, which could have come in handy further in the match, for example going up against a Salamence or a Victini, or really a lot of the Staraptors team, but mostly just the switching, the rocks, wearing down Raikou, and then Mew, and then Aerodactyl. Those were unfortunate happenings, to say the least. But ultimately, I think, had the Will-O-Wisp connected onto Salamence earlier in the game, and residual damage built up onto Salamence, I feel like a Stone Edge might have taken it out and potentially changed the course of the match.
Yeah, definitely. Those 3 Willow misses, I mean, you're talking, that's 3 total turns that just on those 3 turns a Pokemon isn't taking 1/8 damage. That's crucial, because after those 3 turns, that's a lot. And I mean, granted, the Salamence had Wish. This is the 2nd week in a row we've seen someone use a Gale of Darkness throwback Pokemon. And don't get me wrong, it was a fantastic set, the Wish set, and I loved it because I love Wish Mets. But those Willow misses were just brutal, and it was painful to watch. One more moment that I had written down, which I think was pretty much just the nail in the coffin, was the Gastros switched, I forget what they switched out, but G-Heart had Salamence in, and it was in between wishing and doing all of the shenanigans. The Gastros switched out and switched in Nidoqueen, and I think it was Sawk switched out, and it was one of the last switches they made. And that particular turn, the Staraptors went for Dragon Tail, which I believe was their only actual attack, and took down the Nidoqueen, and that stopped pretty much anything that was left in the tank for the Gastros. That match ending with the struggle was just holy crap.
Yeah. And struggle almost took out Victini. Victini lived on 3%.
Yeah, that was just, woof.
It's a
the
nail
end of that match.
It came down to a 1% live on Zapdos last week with M&J TV's match as well. So I don't know if this guy just has the touch, but he is just barely coming within an inch of victory every single time. And keep in mind, the comments about any of these matches is not to take away from the winners, because I know we're spewing a lot of negativity at you right now, but everyone prepared relatively well. There were just some points in the games where coin tosses happen every once in a while, right? Misses occur, you know, gutsy plays are staved away for more cautious moves. It just happens. It's part of the game.
And as always, these are our opinions. This is a critical analysis, not a let's bash the people we don't like. So don't get the wrong idea. These are just our thoughts on things that happened. And as always, when you look back on it, it's a lot easier to criticize than when you're planning to move forward.
Exactly. Hindsight is always 2020, kids. What we're here is to help everybody learn and improve, and it's a great opportunity for that. So,
Right.
what were your thoughts on the pivotal moments for this week, week 2 of the GBA D-League, season 2? Let us know in the comments down below. And while you're at it, feel free to come back next week when Oldmantup and I analyze even more pivotal moments for week 3 of the GBA season 2 D-League, right here on the GBA channel on Thursday.
Alright guys, this has been KantoCastBlue and Oldmantup, and we will catch you on the flip side.